Caring feels like a good thing until you start caring about everything. Whether they're okay, whether they understood you, whether you disappointed them, whether they secretly dislike you, whether you said the wrong thing 3 hours ago. And slowly, without noticing, your mind becomes a place where everyone else's emotions have somehow become your responsibility. The strange thing is, people who care too much are rarely trying to control anyone. They're usually trying to prevent something from going wrong. Maybe you're the person who notices when someone's mood changes before they say anything. You can hear a slight difference in someone's voice and immediately wonder what happened. When a friend becomes quiet, you start searching through your memory for something you might have done. When someone sends a shorter message than usual, you notice the missing enthusiasm. And suddenly, a simple "okay" becomes an investigation worthy of a detective. At first, this can feel like empathy, and sometimes it is. Being sensitive to other people's emotions can make someone thoughtful, considerate, and emotionally intelligent. But there is a point where understanding someone else's feelings quietly turns into managing them. You stop simply noticing that someone is upset and start believing you have to make them feel better. You stop caring about whether someone is disappointed and start believing their disappointment means you've done something wrong. That's where caring begins to become exhausting. Because when you care too much, you don't simply experience your own emotions. You begin carrying pieces of everyone else's. Someone is angry and you feel responsible. Someone is sad and you feel guilty for not fixing it. Someone is struggling and you immediately start wondering what you can sacrifice to make their life easier. You can become so focused on keeping everyone else comfortable that you barely notice how uncomfortable you've become. And sometimes, the person who cares too much becomes incredibly good at anticipating problems. Before anyone asks for help, you've already thought of what they might need. Before a disagreement happens, you've rehearsed how to prevent it. Before someone can become disappointed, you've already changed your plans to avoid letting them down. It can look incredibly responsible from the outside, but internally, it can feel like you're constantly on duty. Your mind is scanning the room. Who's upset? Who's uncomfortable? Did that joke go too far? Does she seem distant? Is he annoyed? Should I apologize? Should I explain? Should I send another message? And eventually, caring stops feeling like warmth and starts feeling like surveillance. The problem is that human beings aren't designed to control every emotional outcome around them. You can be kind to someone and they can still misunderstand you. You can communicate honestly and someone can still become disappointed. You can give your absolute best and someone can still decide it wasn't enough. And if you've built your identity around keeping everyone happy, those moments can feel almost unbearable. That's because caring too much can sometimes come with a hidden belief. If I try hard enough, I can prevent people from feeling bad about me. But that's impossible. People have their own expectations, their own histories, their own insecurities, and their own interpretations of what you say and do. Sometimes someone is upset because of something completely unrelated to you, and yet the person who cares too much can still immediately place themselves at the center of the explanation. They don't ask, "What's happening with them?" They ask, "What did I do?" And that tiny difference can completely change the way you experience relationships. You begin monitoring yourself constantly. You think about how your words might sound before speaking. You rewrite messages several times. You apologize even when you're not sure you've done anything wrong. You agree to things you don't actually want because saying no feels more painful than carrying the inconvenience yourself. And eventually, something strange happens. People may start believing you're always available. Not necessarily because they're taking advantage of you, but because you've trained them to expect that you'll adjust. You'll understand. You'll accommodate. You'll be the one who says, "It's fine," even when it isn't. And this is one of the cruelest parts about caring too much. Sometimes, your kindness teaches people how little they need to consider your needs. You become the dependable one, the understanding one, the person everyone can call, the person who listens to everyone's problems, remembers birthdays, checks in, notices when someone is struggling, and somehow still feels guilty for needing anything in return. But eventually, even the most generous person gets tired.
And that exhaustion can be confusing because nobody necessarily did anything terrible to you. There may be no dramatic betrayal, no enormous argument, no obvious villain. You're simply tired from constantly being emotionally available. You can love people deeply and still become exhausted by constantly thinking about them. You can care about someone's feelings without becoming responsible for their feelings. And perhaps that's one of the most important distinctions people who care too much eventually have to learn. Responsibility and compassion are not the same thing. Compassion says, I understand that you're hurting. Responsibility says, I must make your pain disappear. Compassion says, I don't want to disappoint you. Responsibility says, I must never disappoint you. Compassion allows you to care. Responsibility, taken too far, can make you feel trapped. And the difference between those two can determine whether caring becomes something beautiful or something that slowly drains you. And there is another strange consequence of caring too much. You can become afraid of being misunderstood. You explain yourself excessively because you want people to know you had good intentions. You worry about being perceived as selfish. You replay conversations because you wonder whether your tone sounded cold. You might even stay in situations that make you unhappy because leaving would make someone else feel abandoned. But being misunderstood is sometimes unavoidable. There will be people who interpret your boundaries as rejection, people who interpret your silence as anger, people who interpret your independence as selfishness. And no amount of explaining can guarantee that everyone will see you exactly as you intended. That's one of the hardest truths for a deeply caring person to accept. You can be a good person and still disappoint people. You can have good intentions and still make mistakes. You can say no and still be kind. You can walk away from something that isn't good for you without becoming cruel. And perhaps most importantly, you can allow someone to be unhappy with you without immediately rushing to repair the situation. That doesn't mean you've stopped caring. It means you've finally realized that caring doesn't require control. The healthiest version of caring isn't constantly asking, how do I make everyone okay? It's asking, how can I be kind without abandoning myself? That question changes everything. Because you don't have to become cold to develop boundaries. You don't have to stop answering messages, stop helping people, or stop noticing when someone is hurting. You simply stop treating every emotion around you like an emergency. Someone can have a bad mood without you fixing it. Someone can disagree with you without the relationship being over. Someone can be disappointed without you having failed them. Someone can misunderstand you without you spending the entire night constructing a defense in your head. And someone can walk away from your life without it meaning that you weren't enough. Maybe that's the real problem with caring too much. It's not that caring is bad. It's that somewhere along the way, you can start believing that being a good person means being emotionally available to everyone, all the time, at your own expense. You begin confusing kindness with self-sacrifice, empathy with responsibility, and love with the constant need to keep everything from falling apart. But you are allowed to have limits. You're allowed to protect your energy. You're allowed to say, I can't do that. You're allowed to stop explaining yourself after you've already been honest. And you're allowed to care about someone without carrying them. None of those things make you selfish. They simply remind you that you exist in the relationship too. Think about how often you give people permission to have complicated emotions, but refuse to give yourself the same permission. You understand when someone is tired. You understand when they're distant. You understand when they need space. You understand when they make mistakes. But when you make a mistake, suddenly you're expected to have an explanation, an apology, and a solution ready before you've even had time to understand what you feel. Maybe caring for yourself requires the same patience you've spent giving everyone else. Maybe you don't need to immediately solve every misunderstanding. Maybe you don't need to respond to every emotional change around you. Sometimes a person can be upset, and you can simply let them be upset.
Sometimes a problem can exist without you becoming the person responsible for solving it. And sometimes, "I'll think about it," is a perfectly complete answer. Because caring should make you more human, not less of yourself. The goal isn't to become indifferent. It's not to stop noticing people, stop helping, or stop loving deeply. The goal is to develop enough emotional distance to understand where your responsibility ends. You can hold someone's hand without carrying their entire weight. You can listen to someone's pain without making it your own. You can love someone deeply while still allowing them to face the consequences of their own choices. So, perhaps you don't need to care less. Maybe you simply need to stop carrying what was never yours to carry. Care deeply. Listen closely. Be kind. Show up for the people who matter. But remember that other people's emotions belong to them. Their disappointment belongs to them. Their expectations belong to them. Their interpretation of you belongs to them. And your life belongs to you. You don't have to become harder. You don't have to care less. You just have to remember that being a good person doesn't require you to disappear inside everyone else's needs. Sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do for yourself is to finally put down the weight you've been carrying for people who never asked you to carry it in the first place. If this video resonated with you, thank you for spending these few quiet moments with me. And if you enjoyed it, consider subscribing for more videos that explore the hidden patterns behind human behavior. Until next time, take care of yourself, and never underestimate the quiet places where the mind finds its greatest peace.